Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Will from the Hermit's Lantern Tarot, and I am just getting started. I've got a couple of decks of cards here, which I'll talk about in a moment. I've got my notebook for my list. Today is the 12th, is that right? Yes. All right, 12th of April. Let me light a candle. Hope you're all doing very well today, having a nice weekend, getting ready for the upcoming week. I decided to pull out two decks today. And the first is my handy dandy CBD Tarot de Marseille. This is the Conver, or Conver, I think it's pronounced Conver Ben-Dov Tarot de Marseille by the late Dr. Yoav Ben-Dov. So I've got that. And I decided, since I've been doing so many playing card readings lately, which I really enjoy, I thought I'd pull this out too. This deck, which I've used for the last month or so on this channel, Jeu de Cartes Portrait de Paris, and this is by Artisan Tarot. I thought I'd pull these out too. My plan is to stick mostly to the Marseille Tarot today, but we'll sort of see where it goes. Sometimes I think the playing cards are better for some questions. They can be, it's not that they're more precise, it's that when I read them, I tend to be a little more literal. And so for some questions, these may be preferred. So I decided to pull them both out. We'll see if I use them both or if I just stick with the Marseille Tarot today. Play it by ear, but I thought I'd pull them both out and smudge them both. I'm lighting some Palo Santo now. Let me get that burning. And so today my plan is to do some free readings, tarot and or playing cards, depending on how things go. As you know, those of you who've been here before, the way this works is I will take requests for readings on a first come, first served basis, based on what I see in the chat there. And if you're interested in a reading, go ahead and read the video description or the pinned chat message for how to request a reading. If you haven't done that already, I see a bunch of you have, and I'll read through those in just a moment. And so I'll put you on the list and go in order of requests received. And when it's your turn, I'll call your name as I see your name here in the chat. And if you're here, you can post your question. And if you're not here, then I'll call your name a total of 3 times to give you a chance to respond and let me know you're available for your reading. And if you're here, you can post. And if you're not here, I'll have to skip over you and move on to the next person. But of course, I would be happy to read for you in the future. All right. We've got that smoke burning out here. I'm going to move this to the side. It's up there burning. I've made myself a cup of tea. Today I am drinking, this is a decaf French vanilla black tea. And it is delicious. All right, so let's take a peek at the chat here and see what we've got. So first I see Vanilla and Pie, followed by Stormborn. Followed by Jean. And then Yagmer. Let's see. Followed, I believe, by Lolo. And then Bob Hope. And Storytime Kitchen. And Mona. Selema. Suzanne. All right, that's 10. So I'm going to close the list there, and I will aim to get through these 10. Let me hold the list up to the camera so that you can all see where you are on the list. Hopefully you can read my handwriting. I'll read through it once. Vanilla and Pie, Stormborn, Jean, Yagmer, Lolo, Bob Hope, Storytime Kitchen, Mona, Selema, and Suzanne. All right. So that's the order I'll plan to go in. If there is time, I may reopen the list, but I'm committing to doing these 10 readings and I want to honor those commitments and then we'll just go from there. Let me do some preliminary shuffling. I haven't used this deck in a little while. All right, those should be pretty random. And I think to warm up, let me do a quick reading for myself. I want to ask, my husband has been sick, and I want to know, is he going to feel better tomorrow? And I think I'll go ahead and use the playing cards for this. And to be clear, Uh, he has seen a doctor. He's on medications, and I'm not relying on cards to diagnose or cure him or anything like that. But I am interested as to whether or not he will feel better tomorrow. So let's see what the cards say. All right. Three hearts, two spades, and two clubs. So this tells me it's a respiratory thing having to do with his lungs. And so the three hearts suggest an increase in health, generally speaking, uh, but still some trouble having to do with his two lungs. So I think he's going to feel better, but not totally well. Yeah, an increase in health, and the trouble in his lungs remains. But I'm glad to see the spades and then the clubs, because if I had seen this, that might suggest even a getting worse. But here it's like the pain, the trouble in the spades is being replaced by what I hope are two lungs, which are getting healthier. Yeah. All right. So let's put those away and start working through the list. And so that means we're starting with vanilla and pie. So, vanilla and pie, if you'd like to post your question, fantastic. It's right there. And I think I'll start with the Marseille Tarot. So, vanilla and pie's question is, what is good coming my way the rest of this April? All right. All right. For vanilla and pie, what is good coming their way for the rest of this April? Here we go for vanilla and pie. We have a sword, six cups, and the emperor. The emperor shows up here. So, um, I have no context for this question, so feel free to jump in, vanilla and pie, if there's something here that catches and that I should expand upon. But with the sword, I see a decision. And with the um, cups here, I read the Six of Cups in particular as having to do with traditionally in cartomancy, like the path of pleasure, which can mean like a vacation or a weekend trip. or something like that. But it can also refer to, especially if you're looking at the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, um, the past, right? Like a past relationship, the continuity of a relationship, romantic or otherwise, over time. And so, like, for example, if you are in a relationship with a man who might be represented by the emperor, then something good coming towards you in this month might be a decision being made about the continuity of that relationship over time, right? And Vanilla and Pie says, sounds like my recent ex coming back to make it right with me. It definitely could be. Uh, because I'm only seeing one person card here, and it's the Emperor, I would read this as the person or the thing that has agency or that's taking action or that's making the decision isn't necessarily you, unless you would stand in for the Emperor, but it sounds like that doesn't make sense. It sounds like the emperor is the one who's making the decision, right? Making a cut. And that decision concerns something to do with relationships and their movement or like making a choice about them over time. So, yeah, if you have an ex who you suspect might come crawling back, shall we say, um, and if you would see that as something, good, right? Because the specific question you asked is what good is coming your way. That can certainly be validating. I know that in the past it would have been validating to me to have maybe someone who had gone astray with me in the past to come back. Even if I wasn't interested in taking that person back, it can there's a certain kind of satisfaction in someone coming back and perhaps saying that they were wrong or they want you back or whatever it might be. So, it could certainly be that, um, especially if, as you're watching this, if you see the emperor and you think, "Oh, the emperor is very much this ex of mine," right? Um, it wouldn't have to be an X, but next to the 6 of cups, that's a very likely way of reading this. Um, but it could be any sort of masculine identifying person, in your life, right? Like, a relative or a friend or, someone at work or anything like that. But I tend to go with like, what is the most obvious thing that resonates with the querent first? And it sounds like what I'm seeing in the chat is that the thing that resonates immediately with this is having to do with your ex, and so that is what I would expect to see for you coming up. All right, so there we go. We've got our emperor, and he's looking back at the past at this relationship and realizing that there's a decision that he wants to make. He wants to take things, um, fight for things, right? Get things moving again, right? All right. So there we go. Keep us updated. Let me know if that happens. I'd be curious to hear. And let's look at the list. Yes, you make the final decision. 100% vanilla and pie. So Stormborn, we have Stormborn next. And for those of you who might be interested, I have started doing paid private readings. And if you're interested in that, take a look at the Linktree link in the video description. I'm offering one-on-one private video conferencing readings, as well as pre-recorded audio readings. Oh, and Vanilla and Pie asked, "Did my husband enjoy his trip?" Yes. I'd say overall, yes. It was a lot. Whole lot of things happened, on that trip. Um, Part of it was certainly what I would call enjoyment. It was good to see for him to see some old friends, that he hadn't seen in a while. Um, there was some struggle that came out of it as well, but I think productive kind of struggle. So, overall, a good trip. Yes, thank you for asking. All right, so Stormborn, second call for Stormborn. Second call for Stormborn. And we'll give Stormborn just one more moment. Yeah, this tea is really great, Yagmer. We buy a lot of loose tea at my house, and we don't drink it as often as we should because in the past the tea strainers that we've had are not very great. And so when I'd go to make a cup of tea, I'd see all this beautiful loose leaf tea that we have, and then I would just grab a regular old tea bag from the supermarket because it's just easier and quicker and cleaner. But my husband just bought a really great tea strainer, and so we've been drinking through all of our loose leaf tea, and it's been fantastic. And I'm really excited about it because once we drink through all the tea we have, we can buy more. Okay, last call for Stormborn. If you're here, Stormborn, let us know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to Jean. All right, so we're going to go past Stormborn and dive into Jean's question. And Jean's question is, what are I's feelings and intentions towards Jean? Okay, and one more riffle. That's 7. All right. So, what are I's feelings and intentions towards Jean? Here we go. 3 cards. Okay. King of Swords. Judgment. King of Cups. And they're both looking over here at something. So we're definitely going to want to look at the surprise card. But before we add more variables into the mix, let's look at what we have. So there are 2 kings here, which I would read as 2 men or masculine people. They can also be events or situations or forces or that kind of thing. But, we're talking about a particular person. So, the first thing I want to figure out for myself in order to interpret this is uh, are these two different people, right? Because one way of reading this is that there are two guys involved in some way. And another way of reading this is that one of the kings, this one, the King of Swords, becomes the King of Cups. And I'm less likely to think of it that way. I almost always read the court cards as referring to actual people, individual people, but sometimes, given the question and the context, it does make sense to think um, more in terms of one transforming into the other. So if there's another, like, my first question would sort of be, is there any possibility that he thinks there's another guy involved? That's the first thing that comes to mind. Because one way of reading this would be to say, first card down is the subject, often or usually subject of the reading. And so this suggests to me that um, is ready to fight through all of the other people, including specifically this other man that he sees. Okay, so you say he knows that you have many male friends. So it so it's this makes me think that he feels a kind of rivalry with the other male friends that you have around you, and perhaps one of them in particular. And he maybe doesn't feel particularly well disposed towards this other guy. Let's look now that we've kind of figured that out. Let's look at the surprise card just to see what is everybody looking at. And it's 7 coins, which I would read here as um, anxiety or nervousness, apprehension, like he sees this other guy as an obstacle on the path, right? Um, so what are his feelings, or the question you asked is, what are his feelings and intentions towards you? And I would say he's feeling kind of defensive, like he thinks that a lot of other people sort of have your ear, right? And I say that because with the judgment card, I'm always thinking about sound because we have the angel with the trumpet. And so this is a very loud card, right? And so you have to think about um, who is calling to the other people, right? And so this suggests to me that he may think there's a lot of influence that your friends have on you, and maybe one male friend in particular, and that this is causing him anxiety. Now, the implied the, like, implication there, is that he would only feel anxiety and defensiveness if it's because he sees a particular value in his relationship with you that he thinks is threatened in some way by your associations or your friendships with these other um, people, right? With this other group of people. We see a group of people down here, and most of these other people, they're small. If you think like my teacher, Camellia Elias, emphasizes that size matters in the tarot, right? Size matters. And so we have a very, very big figure here, a bunch of small ones suggesting that they're less important, right? But then one other one that is just as big as the first, right? And so this suggests out of the group, out of the public group of your associations or your friends or whoever they might be, one of them seems bigger than the rest, and this guy has his sword up as he's looking at that guy, right? So, there you go. So what are his feelings and intentions? Um, Feelings apprehensive even as he is valuing a connection with you. And I say valuing because of the coins that are showing up here, because we use coins to indicate value and transact for value and negotiate value and all of that kind of thing. Uh, so finding value in the connection, but feeling like there's an obstacle towards it that has to do with what other people are saying to you, what you're hearing from other people, particularly one male friend, I think, in particular, who's a this King of Cups person. He's like a really nice friend, right? It's with the cup we think always of someone who has your best interests in mind, right? Um, and because this friend of yours has your best interests in mind, the subject of our reading that you asked about, he feels like uncertain about this guy, and is like wants to fight him. Not necessarily literally, but he feels defensive and protective um, about those connections that you have with others, which, as I said, emphasizes the fact that he finds value in his connection to you because if he didn't, he wouldn't care. But here we see someone who's really got his eyes in that direction. So yeah, if um, it depends, of course, how you feel about I, but it makes me think like if you wanted to deepen a connection with I, then reassuring him that these male friends of yours are indeed exclusively friends, and that while they certainly have your best interests in mind, they're not romantic in any way, and they're not physical in any way. Those, if he were to know that, it might get him to put down his sword um, a little bit, because it can be tough to form a connection with someone who's always got a weapon raised, metaphorically speaking, right? Not impossible, but I think it does add an extra challenge. And Gene says one of his dead oh, okay, wait a minute. One of his dead male loved ones gave me a message to give to him in a dream, and he was really shocked by it. Well, that is fascinating. His dead male loved ones gave you a message to give to him in a dream. He was really shocked by it. Well, when you say dead male loved ones, I can't help but think of in the judgment card, these 3 figures, at least one of them in the Marseille Tarot, it's at least one, the blue one, is rising, like, up out of a coffin or rising up out of, a crypt or something, right? As though they're coming back to life, right? As though they're deceased. In the Rider-Waite-Smith, all of these figures are pretty clearly deceased. In the Marseille, it's a little less certain. I think the blue one for sure. Um, the other 2, because of where they're standing, it's a little less certain, but it is the judgment card, so it's like everyone who's died is then coming back to life and has to be judged, right? And so we could think there too, um, of literally of judgment, right? That, um, another way to read this spread would be then to go. to read it along the lines of the context you're saying with this dead male um, loved one who came to you in a dream, right? That he feels a certain, I don't know what the message was, but a certain kind of judgment about that, right? And maybe that's part of why he's nervous and anxious and has his sword raised. So, like, maybe that interaction between the two of you has really struck a nerve with him, and maybe that is feeding into his defensive um, posture, right? His feeling of like needing to create structure and order around his relationship with you, right? Like maybe you like really struck a nerve. Yeah. That's really interesting, especially with this judgment card. The idea of like the dead coming back, because that's what we see here on judgment. Okay. So next up, we have Yagmer. That's interesting, Gene. Um, you say the man is older than him, and I just noticed that with the two court cards that have come up, the King of Cups has a beard, a gray beard, and I think maybe some more lines around his eyes. Anyways, this man looks older than this one to me, right? This one's got blonde hair, long blonde hair. This guy, for all we know, he's bald under that hat and he's got the long gray beard. So an older man and a younger man. Okay, so Yagmer has posted their question, and you're very welcome, Gene. So let's do Yagmer's reading. Yagmer asks about Jay's feelings. He's someone Yagmer has romantic feelings for, but they're not in contact right now. All right, that was 7. So for Yagmer, what are Jay's feelings towards Yagmer? Here we go. 3 cards. 3 cups. 4 cups. 7 batons. So this is pretty straightforward. You asked about feelings, and we get quite a number of cups on the table. 3 growing into 4. So a growing sense of affection or desire, right? But that growing affection uh, steadies off right? Like it rises and then it hits 4 where it's steady, but then it stops because it hits an obstacle. With the 7 of batons, we can think of it, it's an odd number, right? The 6 is nice and even, but the 7th baton throws a wrench in the machine, so to speak. So with the batons, I think about the effort that we put into building relationships with others. And so this says really clearly to me a growing affection that then sort of hits a wall, right? Because there is some social obstacle towards it going any further, right? And so you would know because you have the information better than I what specifically that obstacle is. But this one is really straightforward, uh, as far as I can tell, unless there's anything else there. Uh, 3 become 4. A feeling at an intensity of 3 grows to a 4, but then it plateaus because there is a social, or interpersonal blockage or obstacle. There is some reason that likely has to do with, like, interpersonal relationships or practical things that prevents the cups from growing in intensity any further, right? Um, yeah, so, you know, um, there's lots of reasons, when the 7 of batons comes up in this context. Um, it sounds like you haven't dated this person before, but the 7 of batons can indicate that something in a relationship is faulty, like it's been building, but something has been done incorrectly, or there's like a mistake that's been made in the way that the connection has been increasing or growing. And so that sort of needs to be corrected before it can grow up anymore, right? More generally, the 7 of batons, is just there's an obstacle in the path, right? Like a stone in the road or, a door that is locked, that kind of thing. And, and we see the effect of that is that while he has feelings that are increasing there, they sort of stop, right? They exist and they are good feelings and they are, tender feelings, we might put it, right? But they're only going so far and then they're stopped by some other force, represented here by the 7 of batons. Oh, okay. So you have dated before. All right. So if you have dated before, then um, the obstacle may not be coming from outside, so to speak, but the obstacle could have to do with your history, right? The obstacle could have to do with something that was done in a faulty way or a way that's not strong enough. Like the blueprints weren't laid out correctly, so that when you two built something together, it didn't get built quite right. And so something has to get torn down or redone, or like you need a new plan in order for it to build up um, in a way that will work. And that's not this sort of really awkward, odd 7. That one, this wants to just like fall right over, right? This isn't steady. The feelings are steady, but the actual building of the relationship, that's the part where it's very unsteady and awkward and odd and, wants to fall over. Yeah, you say healing to pass the block. Yeah, healing or a really like a clear conversation about what you both want from the relationship or what didn't work before, and then of course whoever was sort of responsible for that, and usually it's more than one person, it's both people need to make some kind of change, and figuring out how to make a plan, like a blueprint, um, to move forward with it, right? All right, so let's look at the list. Here it is right now. You're very welcome, Yagmer. So here's the list at the moment. Stormborn, if I reopen the list after I get through these 10 and you're here, I could add you. Right now, I've got the list closed because I want to get through the ones I've committed to reading. But after I finish with the 10th, Suzanne, um, I'll look at the time and see how much time I've got left. And if there's time, I may reopen the list. So Lolo is next. Lolo is next on my list. So Lolo, if you are here, let us know, and you can go ahead and post your question in the chat. And then, of course, um, for anyone that I'm not able to read for today, whether you're watching this now or subsequently, I am available for paid private readings, and you can click the Linktree link in the video description for more information about those. I offer private one-on-one video readings, video conferencing readings, as well as pre-recorded audio readings. All right, so second call for Lolo. Lolo Lilian. Lolo Lilian. All right, and we'll give Lolo just another moment. If you're here, Lolo, let us know. All right, seems like we may have lost Lolo. So is Bob Hope here? If Bob Hope is here, you can post your question. And I'll just give it a moment. I know that there can be technical reasons why it takes a moment for people to respond. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. I don't want to rush things, but I also want to keep things moving. All right. If we have no Lolo or no Bob Hope, Storytime Kitchen, are you here? Oh, and I realize, let me make sure I've got my chat set up correctly. Okay, there we go. Good. All right. Storytime Kitchen is here. Yay. All right. So, Storytime Kitchen, if you would like to post your question, I would be happy to read for you. Okay. Okay, got it. So Storytime Kitchen asks, is blocking you know who the best choice for me? Please, Will. Great. Yes, this is someone we have uh, messaged about in the past. I think I did a reading on my channel for this, or for this person. Okay, so you have a choice to make here. And so anytime I have a choice, I like to lay out 3 cards for each option, because then I get a glimpse of what's on the horizon for one option and what's on the horizon for the other. And so we'll lay down 3 cards for what you can expect if you block this person, and we'll lay down 3 cards for what you can expect if you do not block this person. All right? This is one of my most often used spreads. I use this for myself all the time when I'm trying to decide, should I do this or should I do that? I lay down 3 cards for each option and I figure out which looks the best given the outcome that I'm hoping for. All right, so 3 cards for each choice. The first 3 will represent the outcome if you do block him, and the second 3, what you can expect if you do not block him. All right, let's see what we get. Death. 2 coins. Page of batons. So this is if you do block him. And if you don't, 9 batons. Knight of cups. and it barely fits on the screen there, but Queen of Batons. Let's see if I can get these a little bit better. All right. All right. So the first thing I notice is the two batons court cards. The Queen of Batons here, and then the page here. And so each string of cards, either option, ends with a court card from the batons suit, right? Uh, Batons, the way that I read them, are about putting in effort, particularly here with towards a relationship. It can also be work, but you're not asking about work, right? You're asking about a relationship with this person, he who shall not be named. Uh, so I'll just read each group and we'll go with that. So this these first two cards are clearly indicating you're blocking him, an end to the conversation, the interaction, the exchange of minds between the two of you, right? What so then the third card is telling us what happens if you block him, right? If you block him, then you kind of have to start over like a page, right? Pages are beginners, they're learners, they're trainees, they have to figure things out, right? And so you if you block him, then you sort of have to learn from that, not just the blocking, but everything that has come along with this person. And you're ready to sit off and explore something new, right? It's a new beginning for you, right? With how you're going to build a new relationship with someone else, or start a new project, or like whatever it is that you're going to do with yourself after having cut off the interaction, the exchange between the two of you, right? So starting over can seem difficult, I think, particularly when over here we see you, I believe, represented as a queen of batons, right? Because most people would rather be a queen than a page. Yes? I mean, ask a queen if she'd rather be a page, and most cases, I think the queen would say, "No, I think I'd rather be a queen," right? Because I have standing and power, and I'm sitting on a throne as opposed to standing up on this rocky ground, with my walking stick, getting ready to go off and start over, right? But what do we see in the context of this queen? And so, as a reminder, the second three cards are if you don't block him. Uh, well, we've got the Knight of Cups, and this is the classic romance partner, right? And so that's great, except they're looking away from each other, right? They don't see eye to eye. You can imagine it'd be quite difficult for the two of them to have a conversation, a connection, when she's looking over here and he's got his eye on this cup and he's on a horse, and the horse is taking him further away from the queen, right? Uh, so I probably should have prefaced this whole reading by saying that you will have to make your own choice, right? And I'm not here to tell you what to do or make your decisions for you. You have to work with all the context and all the information that you know, and make the best decision for yourself. That's my little disclaimer. Um, but with the second set, we've got nine batons, which is like a change in method, a change in the way that the relationship is being woven together or built, right? And, you know, while you've got the Knight of Coins here, and while you're represented as a queen, there's a clear disconnect in the way that the two of you are facing away from each other. And I wonder where is he going? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's over here with these nine batons? It's like he's moving away because he wants to change his social standing or change his social group, something like that, right? If we had seen, for example, this, the reading would be different because this suggests there's a change in the way the relationship is being built, but it's a change that results in the two of you getting closer to each other, right? Coming together, seeing eye to eye. But that's not what we get. The change seems to be setting up for you're staying where you're at on the throne, but it's him who is moving away, right? So there you go. If you block him, if you put an end to your interactions with this person, your conversations with this person, you will be able to start something else over. If you don't block him and continue to interact with him, um, the change is not likely to bring you closer. And so you will have to decide whether or not that is okay for you or not. On the one hand, you might feel by maintaining the connection, you might feel kind of regal. You might feel kind of like a queen, right? But it's a queen whose knight is off on a quest that doesn't seem to involve her, unfortunately. Um, Unless you've sent him on the quest, but that doesn't seem to link up with what I can remember about um, the little interaction that I know of this person, right? So you're sort of the question of should you block him or not is the question of should you begin anew and explore other options, or can you remain satisfied if he's off drinking his cup somewhere else, right? Like, is that going to be okay with you? Um, and you are, of course, the only one who can answer that question. Um, And, the way I think of this is that the cards help you. They can do a couple things. One is they can validate something you already know. And that can be very powerful, right? Because if you think like, I think the situation is like this, and the cards validate that, well, then that's great because, uh, you can move forward then with what you already knew. But sometimes the cards, and I think this is even more powerful, the cards will show you something you had never thought of before, right? And so um, you would know better than me whether that's something you're seeing here. Um, but one way of putting this is that if you continue to engage with this person, you're not going to be able to explore other options, right? You will be on your throne while he goes off and does whatever it is he's doing, right? But the queen is not exploring other options. The queen is staying put. If you do block him, you will be able to explore other options. And while that might feel like a kind of demotion in rank, like, gosh, I put in so much effort into this relationship, and now I have to get off the throne and lose my crown and go off and walk on the uneven ground, and it's a whole thing. But um, maybe what you will find in exploring other options would be better than the fickle knight who is not looking you dead in the eye, right? So and you ask in the chat, are you saying that if I don't block him, I'm not going to hear from him anyways? I wouldn't say 100% that you wouldn't hear from him at all, but it does seem like you are not his main priority, right? Like maybe he's happy having you behind him, um, so that he can maybe it's the kind of thing where like he likes knowing that you're there because he can come back to you, but in order to come back to you, it means he's leaving, right? So he's off over here, um, doing pleasurable things with the cup, right? Having a good time, engaging in whatever these other batons are, which I would see as like another social group of some kind, right? Like other people potentially, uh, while you're sort of not privy to seeing that, right? Like you're not. He's doing something socially that doesn't involve you, right? And so I wouldn't say we'd have to like ask another question, lay more cards, I think, to get a precise answer to the question of whether or not he will like ever engage again. But this certainly is leaning towards that whatever he's doing, you're kind of an afterthought, right? Like he knows you're there, but he's not going to you. He's going off to this other social situation, right? These other um, people. I read the batons often. If it's not work, which it isn't here, I read them as like social connections, right? Like social interactions. Because we build relationships with people and we build houses with batons, that kind of thing. Um, the other way to think of it, for those of you who might have some interest in the history of tarot, I understand that these are like polo batons. And so you can think of the way that polo is a sport that is played socially with teams, with groups, right? And so it's people using the batons to either compete or to cooperate, depending on which team you're on, right? Like if it's him and his other team players and they're all playing a game together, so to speak, but you're not playing the game, right? You're over here looking in the other direction while he's over here with these other people. Which doesn't mean that he wouldn't come back from time to time, but it seems pretty clear to me that he's interested in like getting drinks after the game than he is in, as I said, right, like offering the cup to you. He's not offering the cup to you. He's offering the cup to other social connections. So there you go. Um, Not an easy decision to make, you know. Well, you knew that already, but hopefully at least it gives you something to think about. Okay, so that was Storytime Kitchen's reading, which means that Mona is next on the list. So, Mona, if you're here, go ahead and post your question in the chat or let us know you're here. Yes, I'd be happy to do that. A personal reading, please. I know you've been busy, but I'm still down whenever you're down. So, no worries, no worries at all. Okay, so Mona Mona, if you're here, second call for Mona. If Mona is here. All right. So maybe we don't have Mona. This will be the last call for Mona. Let me get the full name for Mona somewhere in the chat. Mona Feige. Mona Feige. If you are here, last call for Mona. Okay, so if Mona is not here, then Selema. Selema, if you're here, go ahead and post your question. Let me know you're here. Hi, Stormborn. I see you. And for those who might be joining, hi, Mulberry Twist. The list is closed right now, but I think there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to be reopening it once I get through the current list, since I've had some no shows, which is fine. So if you care to hang around, when I reopen the list, I can add folks to it. So Selema, if you are here, second call for Selema. Second call for Selema. All right. Well, we'll do a final call for Selema. Selema, if you are here, please let us know. And if Selema is not here, I see that Suzanne is. So Suzanne, if you'd like to post your question, go ahead and do that. And hi, Bob. I skipped over you earlier, but I'm probably going to reopen the list here in a moment after Suzanne's reading. And so if you're here when I do that, I could add you. Okay. So Suzanne has a question about her daughter. Suzanne asks, my daughter is going to Maryland in December. Will it go good for her birthday? All right. Suzanne's daughter is taking a birthday trip to Maryland. Will that be a good trip? Okay. Will Suzanne's daughter's birthday trip to Maryland be a good trip? 3 cards, 8 swords, 5 batons, and 8 batons. So, travel is always work. I like to travel quite a bit, but I always just about any opportunity I have, I want to travel. Um, but that doesn't mean I don't recognize that it can be exhausting, and while you get a lot out of it, it's not always easy, right? And so um, I think that what we can expect here is that she's going to put a lot of effort into this trip. I do think it's gonna pay off, though, and I'll explain why in a moment. Um, the 2 eights, that's the first thing I noticed, is the 2 eights, 8 swords, and then 8 batons, and so there's a kind of transformation where the swords turn into batons, and with eights, I think, a couple possible things. One is, um like, is she going with a group of people, or is she going to meet up with a group of people? Because with the 8 of batons, I think of a social group, right? People socializing together. I talked just a moment ago about um, batons and the history of tarot and how they can be about cooperation or competition, that kind of thing, but about social interactions, working with or against other people, right? Um, and so, um, I think at the main thing about this trip is that she's going to have the opportunity to put in a lot of effort in order to deepen, um, like, relationships with other people, right? And you say it's her and her wife, and they're meeting somebody there. Okay, so, like, not a big group. Sounds like just 3 people. Okay. So in that case, because for smaller groups, I would, especially if it's 3 people, I would expect more, one of the threes, like a 3 of batons or 3 of cups or something. And so if it's a smaller group, then I would read this more, um, that she's part of what's going to concern her in this trip is, the the planning, right? Like anytime you're traveling, there's a lot of plans that require effort that you put in, right? Um, so let's read these from left to right. Uh, and see what we get. So with the 8 of swords can be that the atmosphere is not great to begin with, right? And as I said, that changes. But there might be a sense right at first of some stress happening, and that so she's thinking a lot, like mental strain, that kind of thing. When eights don't refer to large groups of people, and it sounds like here that they don't, the eights can refer to the mind, at least in the way that I read the pip cards of the Marseille Tarot and the playing cards. And so you can expect that at first, at the beginning of the trip, it's going to be stressful, uh, but she's going to be able to overcome that by putting in effort. With the 5 of batons, we can think about she's like putting her whole person, her whole being is devoted into planning this trip and making sure that everything is going to work out. And then it does, right? So the anxieties or the fears or the mental stress that she has about the trip, because she's doing such a good job of planning it and putting it together, they're going to line up and pay off. Everything gets woven together very neatly, right? So that indeed um, flowers can grow. That would be one way of putting it. We can see on the first card here, there are little buds, but they're not full flowers yet, right? And there's in particular one flower in the center that is kind of trapped amongst all of the swords. But she gets the leaves to grow and then finally gets the flowers to rise up and bloom through the planning. So, yes, I think she's gonna have a very good trip. I would say that, um, the trip may be more about deepening her relationship with, her wife and this other person that she's meeting, uh, as opposed to just going to have a good time, right? And, in other words, like, if I saw a whole bunch of cups cards, that would suggest to me they're just gonna go party, right? Like, if I saw, I don't know, the 10 of cups here, that would suggest to me, is she gonna have a good time? Yes, she's gonna have a really good time, maybe even too much fun with 10 of cups. Uh but that it won't necessarily be meaningful in a way that will strengthen relationships. Instead of that, with the batons cards, it says to me, while she's going to have a good time, it's not exclusively like the main meaning of it is not just pleasure. The meaning of the trip is not just pleasure, it's to deepen her connection with these other people. And while there may be some stress and anxiety around that at first, she's going to be able to succeed in doing that, in deepening her social connections, in like tightening the weave with her connections with these other people. So, in other word, another way to put it would be to say like the purpose of this trip is not pure hedonism, right? The purpose of this trip is to grow a connection with these other people. And that will happen, right? Um, that she will be successful in doing that. Okay, so that was Suzanne's reading, which, is the last of the original 10 that I set up about an hour, 20 minutes ago. And so what I think I'm gonna do here, is reopen the list. And so I will you're very welcome, Suzanne. And so I see, Tatters, Tatters, Stormborn, and Mulberry Twist. I misspelled Tatters. It's Tatters, not Taters. My bad. Tatters, Tatters, and Stormborn, and Mulberry Twist. All right. And so that would make 8. Let's see, Fairy Tale Process. Yes, I'll add you, Fairy Tale Process. Fairy Tale Process. All right, so, let's look at those. So this is the current list: Tatters, Tatters, Stormborn, Mulberry Twist, and Fairy Tale Process. And that'll probably be it for today because that ought to get me through till after 5 o'clock, and then I'll need to quit for the evening. All right, so Tatters, Tatters, if you would like to post your question, and I see Stormborn's question, so I'll do Stormborn's too. So Tatters, Tatters, if you'd like to post yours. And maybe while we're waiting for Tatters, I'll just go ahead and do Stormborn's reading since I've got the question right there. So, um, Stormborn asks, will I finalize the match with a good nanny by the end of next week? All right. And then as soon as I'm done with Stormborn, I'll do Tatters. So, will Stormborn finalize the match with a good nanny by the end of next week? All right. Will Stormborn finalize the match with a good nanny by the end of next week? Here we go. First card down is the Ace of Coins, followed by the Empress. Oh, followed by the Page of Coins. And the two of them. So this looks pretty clearly to me like a yes, because you're talking about hiring someone. And so you've got your big coin that you're ready to spend on a nanny, right, by the end of next week. And you give a portion of that, right? The coin shrinks, right? So you're not giving like, if this represents like all your money generally, then you're not giving all the coin, but a portion of it is going to another person who, I'm obviously reading you as the Empress here because you're in the position of authority, right? You're in the position to hire someone, and the Page is someone who would be out looking for a position, a job, right? And so you've got your big coin, and you take a piece of that, a part of that, or you shrink it down, and you give it to this other person who clearly is accepting it, right? And so this looks to me like a yes. I would, this is if we just, even I sort of think someone who had never read tarot cards before in their life could read this and say yes, right? This is someone in a high position giving a coin to someone who is ready to accept it, right? And so that sounds like a deal is made, a transaction is accomplished, there's a negotiation that is successful. Um, yes. So I'm only doing one question per person today, because you ask, how will you know if the girl is the right person? And I think that would be we'd need different cards. We need new cards to answer that. Um, but, um, but yes, yes, in terms of like, is will you have the opportunity to hire someone? I'm going to say yes. Will it be the right someone? We would need to do another. reading, right? Especially if you have multiple options, we would need to like put down cards for each option. But this is showing to me really clearly, and I think that the best card readings are the ones that are just incredibly obvious. And sometimes I think that a lot of the symbolism and esoteric correspondences and astrology and everything, sometimes I think that can get in the way of what is really obvious. And to me, this obviously is a picture of someone who gives a coin to someone else, right? And so that's why I would say yes. This is pretty unequivocally a yes. Yeah, that's a good point, Tatters Tatters. They're looking at each other, which suggests a good match. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could say um, the page of coins in the system that I use to read the tarot, the page of coins is often a student. They're a clever person, but they're a clever young person, meaning they do still have a lot to learn, right? It's not like they're a king or a queen or a knight or something where they've already had some development. Um, and so assuming that this is well, and it is, representing the potential person you're going to hire, I would expect it's someone who's intelligent, clever, smart, interested, but not someone who's necessarily well tested, right? Like this doesn't look to me like, for example, a nanny who's been doing this for a decade. This looks to me more like someone who's trying it out, right? And so is going to need to learn things along the way. Um, but again, I think that we get an answer specifically to the question we ask verbatim as it was asked. And so we didn't ask for the cards to describe the person. We asked for the cards to say, will the transaction be completed? And this, I think, is giving a really clear yes, the transaction will be completed, right? Or the match, as you put it, the match will be finalized. Yeah. Okay, so that was Stormborn, which means Tatters Tatters. I did these out of order, but Tatters Tatters is next. And I wish you the best of luck, Stormborn, making that or finalizing that match. And so Tatters Tatters asks, I would like to know if I've heard the last of this person I'm in no contact with. Aha. All right. So you and someone were in contact and now are not. And you want to know, is this over, or like, is this person potentially going to come back into your life at some point? All right. So let me shuffle. Okay. So has Tatters heard the last of this person that they are no contact with? Three cards. First card, the Lovers. followed by the popess, the female pope, the high priestess, and the knight of batons. Okay, so I suspect that some folks watching now or subsequently might see the lovers card and might think, um, that this is a connection that is going to continue. I would see it differently, especially because the Lovers card is showing up in the first position and reading left to right, that I would see more as the past, right? And so if we have a lovers situation, and I guess you didn't say that that's what this was. And I am making the assumption that we're talking about someone with whom you had a kind of romantic relationship. Otherwise, yes, it was. Okay, that's what I thought. So, so that is in the past, right? And so we see the three people, and it's as though one is kind of having to make a choice between the other two, and then of course Cupid is up here flying. This lovers situation results in two people. One who is the popess, who is kind of like a nun, right? A single woman, and the other, the knight of batons, who, while his horse is kind of facing her, they're both looking to sort of get out of the picture, and they're heading somewhere else, right? Off on some other adventure, so to speak. And so this says to me, um, these two people are going their separate ways, right? There was a connection, but now they're not facing one another anymore, right? And so I will say that in a question like this, where it's a predictive question and it's about what someone else is going to do, we can't have perfect accuracy with this because people change their minds and everything is subject to change circumstances, and so maybe things will change, but it looks like right now, taking a sort of snapshot of things in this specific moment, this looks to me like it's it's ended, right? Like that you have heard the last of this person. I would also say, while still standing by that by and large, it looks to me like the lovers situation has turned into one where the two people are going their separate ways, right? Um, I will say that if he, because of course I'm reading you, tatters, I'm reading you as the popess, and I'm reading this other person as the knight of batons, and I hope I'm getting that right. I that's without even thinking it, that's sort of the choice that I made in the reading. And so, if that seems particularly off, let me know. But so this person is a kind of adventurer, right? They're a knight, of course, which means they want to move around, and they're the kind of person, because they're an adventurer, like, adventurers go and then sometimes they come back again. He's a player. Okay, there it is. You said it, not me. Yeah. So he's got his baton out, right? And he's like, "Who can I offer this baton to?" Right? But he's not offering it towards the popess, who I think is you here, right? He's offering it. You know what? Let's look at the surprise card and see what that is. So, six of batons. So, this he's on a path towards other social alliances. We could put it that way, right? Um, which doesn't mean that at some point he won't like go out and go around and maybe change his mind and come back again. That's always possible because everything is subject to change. The law of impermanence that we all have to live with. But I would say right now it looks like, um, if you're wondering, like, is he thinking of coming back? It looks to me like no. It looks like he's gonna go try other things. give his baton to someone else for a while, that kind of thing, right? Um, and then I guess the final thing I'll say here is that, you know, the Pope S is probably better off without him, right? You didn't ask that, and so I'm throwing extra stuff into it, but I love this card. It's just about my favorite card in the deck. Um, she knows more than just about anybody in the deck, I would say. The Popess, she's the one with the book, right? And so she can read that book. Maybe she's writing in that book. That book contains knowledge in some decks. Um, that book is like the tarot, right? The tarot itself. And so um, there's nothing wrong with seeing yourself represented in a reading as the Popess. I even see myself come up as the Popess, and I'm always very pleased when that happens because she's got better things to do than whatever he's going to offer with that green baton. I don't know. That's what I think. So, so there it is. At the moment, I would say I think you probably have heard the last of this person. Yeah, you're welcome. Very welcome. Okay, let's look. Where are we on the list? That was Tatters Tatters. Okay, so next up is Mulberry Twist. Mulberry Twist, if you are here, go ahead and post your question in the chat, or at least just let us know. Let me know that you're here. Good, you're here. Great. So go ahead and when you can, post your question. And so my list is closed at the moment, although I may. Um, well, if Mulberry Twist and Fairy Tale Process are both here, I probably will not reopen because my plan was to end at about 5 today. And so if I do 2 more readings, that would probably get me to about 5 o'clock. We know Mulberry Twist is here and is going to post their question shortly. If Fairy Tale Process isn't here, maybe I would add one more, but I'm getting to the end um, of my live stream for today. And Selema, I did call your name earlier, but had to skip over you because I think you had to step out for the moment. But I would be happy to read for you in a future live stream. And I also, you're welcome. I am available for paid private readings for anyone who might be interested in that. And those are available if you click on the video description and then check out the Linktree link. You can see that I offer private one-on-one video conferencing readings as well as pre-recorded audio readings. Okay, so Mulberry Twist asks, can we spy on my ex? Yes, we can. He's in another connection. How is that working out? Got it. Got it. Got it. So you dated this person. The two of you broke up. He is now seeing someone else, and you want to know how's that working out for him? Oh, by cheating. So, like, he cheated on you with this person or with someone else. Ew. Good. You left. Good. I have dated only one person who cheated that I know of. And I stayed with that person way too long. I did finally learn my lesson, so there's that. But I think I could have learned it earlier. So good on you for getting out of that. Okay, so for Mulberry Twist, how is Mulberry Twist's ex's new connection working out for them? Here we go. We'll lay down 3 cards, 4 coins, King of Swords, huh, and the Tower. Well, it's a disaster. How about that? um, the house is on fire, so to speak. Okay, so first of all, um, 4 coins suggests a contract or a transactional relationship, right? Which in the context of the question that you're asking is like they each are valuing something in the other person, and at first things are steady, right? But it's very much of a how to put it, there's a kind of practical negotiation that happens between them. In other words, we don't see cups here, which would indicate a deep felt emotional connection or love. It's more like this sounds like a good idea, right? Or like the two of them sort of have an agreement with each other, but it doesn't seem to be based on deep um, feelings, if that makes sense, right? So that's one. But relationships can work out based more on coins than cups. And so this card by itself does not indicate that there's necessarily anything wrong. It's the next 2 cards that suggest to me that it's not the kind of thing that's going to probably last, or if it does last, that will be particularly pleasant to the 2 of them. So we've got our King of Swords here that I think has to be your ex, right? And so he's sitting on his throne with his weapon drawn, and he's looking at the tower, which has been struck by colorful fire from the heavens, and then 2 people who are falling out of it. It's like a total disaster. And so I would read this because we know we're talking about a couple, right? And I said earlier in the stream today that my teacher, Camelia Elias, emphasizes that size matters in the tarot. And so I would read this as this is him, but he shrinks. And so he's one of these 2 people. So in this relationship, there is a moment, perhaps it's now if we read past, present, and future, um, where he feels like a king and he's sitting on his throne and he's probably very satisfied and feels powerful and big manly man and all of that kind of thing, but that's not going to last, because through his own actions, and I say that because when a court card appears, that court card has agency, has the power to act, right? And so who is making things happen here? Obviously, it's the King of Swords. And so through his own actions, everything falls apart and he loses his throne. He shrinks down, so he's a much smaller person than he was before, as is this other person who I would read as the new connection, the new partner that he has, right? And everything is tumbling down to the ground, right? And so it's stable and steady if transactional. He feels good about it, but then he behaves in such a way that the whole thing comes crumbling down, right? Yeah, I'd feel sorry for her too. I mean, this sounds like the kind of person who is just going around teaching other people what to not um, accept in a relationship. But hurting people along the way. And I say that because of the sword, right? And I'm always aiming, at least first, to read the cards in terms of the function of what we see. And so, what do you do with the sword? Well, you can defend or protect, but you can also stab and you can hurt, right? Yeah, a sword is a weapon, right? And so, how is it going? Right now, I think it's not necessarily going terribly badly, but seeing the tower card in the far right on the future, this is like it's not going to go well. It might be stable at the moment, but I don't see that lasting. Yeah, you say it's a matter of time before he hurts her, and I think you're right. Yeah. Yep, I think you're right. The whole thing's gonna blow up, and the King of Swords is the one who's gonna I mean, he's looking right at it, it's yeah. So there you go. Um, you should be, I think, happy that you're away from this person because, he sounds like someone who, needs to change something about how they're maybe living their life or at a minimum how they're engaging in relationships. Okay, so that was Mulberry Twist's reading, which leaves us with Fairy Tale Process. If you are here, Fairy Tale Process, I can do a reading for you. This will be my last reading for the day. You're welcome, Mulberry Twist. Let me know if you ever find out. Let me know if you get the the details on this. I love a good spying session. So, Fairy Tale Process, are you here? Awesome, you're here. Fantastic. So, you will be my last reading for the day, Fairy Tale Process. And so, if you'd like to post your question, you can go ahead and do that. All right. Yes. So there's someone in your life, and you want to know if they have any feelings for you. And so, would I be right to say that you've got like a crush on this person, and you're wondering if the feeling is mutual? Not exactly. Okay. Well, feel free to add any context that you want in the chat. Otherwise, I will pull 3 cards and we will just read what comes up. Oh, okay. So it's someone that you've dated or talked with in the past, but then you're wondering if it could start up again. Okay. Got it. Okay, here we go. What are this person's feelings, if any, for fairy tale process? Okay, here we go. Three cards. Oh my, 10 cups and the world. Aha. And seven cups. Okay, so I read left to right unless I have a good reason not to, and here left to right makes good sense. So, um, uh, there's a lot here. The first most obvious thing I notice is 10 cups turn into seven, right? And so cups I read as feelings, emotions, desires, pleasures, that kind of thing. And so uh, there is a slight decrease from 10 to 7, but 7 is still quite a lot. Okay. And so this suggests to me that this person does still have some feelings for you. However, there's a challenge to them or an obstacle of some kind to them. And so I'll talk through some possibilities of what that might be. And I think the world card is going to help us figure that out. But if you just look at the way the cups are arranged on the 7. First of all, it's an odd number, and 7s are a very, awkward kind of number, right? And so, traditionally, this is the card of, heartache or unease, like emotional unease. So there's still a feeling of affection, but there's something kind of off about it, like there's some kind of problem with it, okay? Uh, and I notice in particular the way that with the 7 of cups, we've got 3 cups on the top, 3 cups on the bottom, but then there's this one cup that's sort of lonely at the center, right? Like it's singled out, there's all this foliage which kind of separates it from all of the other cups on the card, and so there's a sense of, um, being kind of separated or singled out. That image, if you look at the way it's designed, there's the thing at the center with the kind of wreath around it of foliage. That image is repeated on the world card where we have the beautiful figure in the center, and then she's surrounded by the big wreath, which kind of separates her, though not necessarily in a bad way, from all of these other figures around her, right? And so I think that the world card is you, right? And so there's a sense here of you being self-sufficient, of you having elevated yourself in some way, of you being, actually well, not actually, of being, metaphorically larger, right? Like, if he's represented well, I guess I don't know that it's a he, but if, this other person is represented as this cup that's sort of on their own over here, they're smaller, metaphorically speaking, than you seem to be. So, I think that what might be causing the feelings of unease or heartache is, separation. There's a great sense of separation with the 2 of you where, um oh, it is a he. Okay, good. I got my pronouns right. Cool. Um, like, he feels like maybe almost like, is there any chance that he thinks you could almost be too good for him? And I say that because the woman on the world card doesn't need anybody. She can do it all on her own, right? Like, if she wants to, she can reach out to any of these other figures and have a connection or get help or have lunch or coffee or whatever it was, but she doesn't have to. She's at the end, this is the last card in the major arcana. So she's done it. She's completed her journey, so to speak, elevated herself. She's done her thing. And that can be intimidating. Someone who's self-reliant, and independent, that could maybe be kind of intimidating to this other person. And so that is my, suspicion or inclination for why there is this emotional unease. But to answer this very specific question you asked of does this person have feelings, right? What are this person's feelings, if any? I would say yes, this person does still have feelings. They have lessened in intensity because of the reasons I was just discussing, the sense of there being obstacles between the two of you, but they're not gone, right? They're still very much present, although they've become kind of uneven, would be a way to put it, right? From 10, which is a whole lot of feeling, to 7, which is, ooh, there's an obstacle here, but the feeling still remains. In other words, like if we saw a bunch of swords here or something, then I might say, no, he's done, right? Or the feelings that he has are not of the affectionate kind, right? But cups are about affection. And so while they have diminished in intensity, they're still there. It's just that there is an obstacle, there is a challenge, there's a problem, in relating, to you. So, I hope that that answers your question. It is, I will say, I hope that you are, pleased seeing yourself there as the world in the center of everything. Um, good. Oh, good. It makes sense. Good. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. Well, um, I think that I am going to, it's after 5 and my goal was to go until 5, and so I've accomplished that goal, and I have read everyone on my list who was here. For those of you that I missed today or who you missed me, um, I, uh, I would be happy to read for you in the future. I know things come up and you can't always wait, and, you can't always, be here right when I call your name, and that's okay. But I have to keep moving to get through the list. So I'd be happy to read for you in the future, and I am again available for paid private readings for anyone who might be interested. Check out my Linktree link in the video description if you're interested in that. I offer, um, video conferencing, private one-on-one video conferencing readings, as well as pre-recorded audio readings. And you're very welcome, Fairy Tale Process. I'd be happy to read for you again in another future live stream. Okay, everybody, that is going to do it for today. Thanks for being kind in the chat and taking care of each other. And please take care of each other until next time, which will probably be next week, although we'll see what happens. And until then, have a great week, and I will see you all in my next live stream. If not before, feel free also to email me at tarot.hermit.lantern@gmail.com. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.